everybody. Welcome to Shaken and Disturbed. I'm Daryn Carp. Go USA, go USA. Here with John
USA,
Thrasher. Finally,
USA,
this is our this
SND.
closing ceremony is tonight. If you're listening to this from the day that we
Oh,
drop it
that's
on Sundays, the
right.
closing ceremony is tonight. Where Tom Cruise, we can't talk about it yet. We don't know how,
Yeah.
but he's going to be handing off the torch to my lovely city in Los Angeles right now. So
Mm.
we'll be able to talk about that on next week's probably NMR.
Yeah,
But
that's right. Yeah.
welcome to Shaken and Disturbed. So excited to be here. John, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm great. I know LA, I'm sad the Olympics are wrapping up actually. I love the Olympics. By the time this comes out, we'll know if the USA has won the gold medal in women's soccer. You were really excited about that on NMR as you should because guys, I don't know if you know this, Darren's screen name was Soccer Star. So,
Yes, but it was
not soccer.
pronounced
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, it was
How did you
my
spell it?
dad thought of it SOKKERSTR. Hello.
STR, so it wasn't even like, star. You had to get rid of that A.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
Well, they didn't have it available, so you can just
Oh, wow. I can just what? Go ahead, say it to my
yeah, no,
face.
you can just yeah,
Wow.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can just chill right off there. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
here we go. And speaking of
Yeah.
chilling, I haven't had a drink on the show in a while. I'm not like drinking, but
You're
I
cracking
usually
something open though.
I'm about to crack open my world famous Diet Coke. Okay.
Is that a normal size can or is that a tiny
Yeah,
can? I
it's a
can't tell.
normal one. It's
Oh,
an
it's a
8 ounce.
normie. It's a normie.
I think. Oh, 12 ounce. I didn't know it was 12
Oh,
ounce.
oh, big boy over here. I hope it spills everywhere. That would be amazing.
I know. I'm trying not to get it on my
Also,
thing.
how unsatisfying is it when you open a can? I did this with my seltzer yesterday, and I don't know if it was just in the back, but it like opens and it like you don't hear that crisp like.
I throw it
I
away.
hate
I
that.
throw it away immediately. I think it'll be flat. I don't want anything to do with it. If you're not
Right.
going
No,
to give
thank
me
you.
the
Yeah, no,
sound,
thank
I'm
you.
not interested.
I agree with that. I agree with
And
that.
usually, I know recently I've been when I do drink, I usually have just water, but like I needed a little something something. You know what I mean? A
A
little
little pick me,
something something.
you know, a little pick me up, a little pick me up.
Well, speaking of a little something, let's get into this
Yes,
week's episode.
I think you should do it.
Because
I think
I
you
would,
should kick us
yeah,
off.
yeah, I would sit here
Go.
and talk about Diet Coke for hours if you let me, but let's not do that. That's not why people signed up.
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
so in
I
the win,
mean, it's why
I
I
mean,
do the
maybe they did.
show, but
Yeah, maybe
okay.
they did. Okay, so in the winter of 2007, Shannon Gale Christian and Hugh Christopher Newsom Jr. fell victim to a horrific carjacking incident that would spiral into one of the largest scandals in Knoxville history. Shannon Christian was born in Texas on April 29th, 1985. Her family relocated to Knoxville, Tennessee when she was just 12 years old. Now, Shannon graduated from the local high school in 2003, so she's a year older than I am. I graduated in '04. Daryn, you were '06.
Yes, I was 06.
Okay,
That is
so there we
correct.
go. And so this person is around our age, or was, I should say, and went on to study sociology at the University of Tennessee. So in November of 2006, 21-year-old Shannon began dating 23-year-old Christopher Newsom. Now, Christopher was a Knoxville native, a renowned high school baseball player who went on to
Hmm.
study carpentry at Pellissippi State Community College. I think I'm saying that correctly.
I
And on
think
Sep,
that's right. That's how
yeah,
I would do it. Yeah.
okay. I'm American, but not really
You're
Southern
okay.
in that way. Yeah, I'm okay.
You're
Well,
okay.
on Saturday, January 6th, 2007, Shannon planned to visit a friend and attend a party with Chris. She made a phone call to her mother to check in and let her know that she planned to return home later that evening. During the day, Shannon spent some time at her best friend's apartment before Chris picked her up. And as they were leaving the complex, Shannon was annoyed with Chris. They were supposed to be attending a friend's birthday party, and Chris was running late. Well, as she sat in the front seat of her Toyota 4Runner parked outside, Chris tried to make things right, hugging her and kissing her, and just stood outside of the driver's side door. As the couple made up, they were approached by a group of strangers led by a man named Lemaricus Davidson.
Mm-hmm.
Lemaricus was a drug dealer on parole for prior carjacking offenses. And along with Lamarcus was his friend Eric Boyd, his brother Latalvis Cobbins, and two of Latalvis's friends, a couple, George Thomas and Vanessa Coleman.
Okay. Well, kind of a precarious situation. You're making up with your significant other and approached by strangers seems a little a little frightening.
Sus. Yeah, a little
Well,
sus.
Now, just days prior, Latalvis George and Vanessa had traveled from Kentucky to stay with Lemaricus. All four were unemployed, broke, and had no cars or means of transportation. And sometimes desperate times calls for desperate measures here,
Yes,
John.
exactly.
So
Yes.
Lemaricus quickly began to grow frustrated with his guest, taking his anger out on his then girlfriend Daphne Sutton, who finally broke up with him on January 5th. The breakup left Lemaricus so angry that he made the decision to blow off some steam by stealing himself a new ride with the help of his brothers and friends. Now,
And
Channon and
remember, he
Chris,
has a background in this, so this
right,
isn't really
exactly.
that new.
He
Yeah.
was basically coming off of,
Right.
getting out of jail for this. Now, Channon and
Right.
Chris didn't see Lemaricus, Eric, and Latalvis arrive in the lot, which was in a car they actually borrowed from a friend. The three attackers quickly sprung into action. Eric and Lemaricus left their car as
Wow.
Latalvis pulled away. While the group only intended to rob Chris and Channon and steal their SUV, casual,
Oh, just that. Yeah.
yeah, sudden headlights from another vehicle startled the pair and they pushed the couple into their SUV at gunpoint, probably
Wow.
not really knowing how to handle it. Now, in the
Right.
car, the couple was bound. Channon was placed in the trunk.
Oh
Chris was
my
forced
God.
face down in the back seat. Absolutely fucking terrifying. And you're just coming
Yeah.
off of having a fight with your partner. So you're just like,
Right.
you feel all alone. Lamaricus drove their SUV back to his home on Chipman Street, with Latalvis following behind in the borrowed vehicle. And once inside the house, both Channon and Chris were brutally beaten and sexually assaulted, which
Mm.
says to me that this is not just a carjacking, because even if you freaked out and put them in your car, why do you have to beat them and sexually assault them? I get throwing them on the side of the road in that sort of sense and stealing their whatever, but why beat and sexually assault them? That seems like it's not just a carjacking to me.
Yeah, and it's like I'm just trying to like make sense. I'm like trying to visualize what's happening here, and it's like a whole group of people, and it's I'm sure like um things were being escalated and the adrenaline was pumping and like it's hard to tell if this was sort of a premeditated thing when it comes to the beating and the sexual assault, but nonetheless, it's disturbing, you
No, it's
know.
disturbing. Oop, I'm sorry. I
That's
thought my
okay.
ringer was off. Now, according to trial records and Knox News Sentinel, quote, none of the suspects concede involvement in Chris's death. But trial testimony statements and forensic evidence suggests that Lamaricus, Latalvis, Eric, and George forced Chris into the rear cargo compartment of the SUV, leaving Vanessa behind with Channon.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay, so that sort of tells a different story here. Now, Chris was transported to a nearby railroad track that ran parallel to Chipman Street. He was
Mm,
gagged with a sock in his mouth, his arms were tied behind his back, and his
god.
legs were bound together by his own belt.
God, this is just horrible.
I can't even imagine just the panic. Now, his head was covered with a sweatshirt
Yeah.
and it was tied around his neck with shoelaces.
Mm,
Also terrifying. Like, I just can't imagine being suffocated this way. He was
right.
actually then forced to walk along the railroad tracks barefoot until he was shot 3 times with a 22 caliber gun. This is brutal.
Yeah.
Twice in the back by George, paralyzing him, and once in the head, execution style by Lemaricus. I don't know why they felt they had to do this. The group of men then wrapped Chris's body in a comforter and set it on fire. Why all
Wow.
of this?
Well, and what was the
Why torture this man? He didn't do anything. Like, why
yeah.
that?
I know, that's what I'm not understanding is, like, if they just wanted the car, why are they being so brutal about everything?
Well, right. I mean, yeah, it just
And
seems
what's going on in
absurd.
Knoxville and, like, Tennessee in general where everyone's being set on fire? I feel like I've heard of so many cases where people's bodies have been set on fire down there. Can you guys relax? Good lord.
I truly have no idea. It's
Yeah.
fairly terrifying to me. I don't know. I don't know why. This seems just like a horrible way to die and just brutal and torture. So I don't know what's going on here at all.
Yeah. No, yeah, we don't know yet. Let's see what happens here. But meanwhile, back at the house, remember, Shannon's brutal sexual assault continued unrelentingly. The group promised her that if she followed their instructions, she would be released. These proved to be false promises, however, because after they finished with the sexual portion of, of Shannon's assault, they beat her with some sort of heavy object.
Jesus.
Shannon had suffered 2 blows to the head. The group then dragged her body through Lamarcus's living room and coated her throat in bleach in an attempt to destroy any of the DNA
Oh,
evidence. Yeah,
oh my God.
this is
Oh
really,
my
really tragic and
God.
disgusting.
Jesus.
Shannon was then, similarly to Chris, hogtied with fabric, and while she was still alive, was placed inside a black garbage bag with a plastic shopping bag over her head and left to suffocate. I mean, these are some of the most horrible details. On the morning of Monday, January
Mm.
9th, a body was reported on the train tracks. Law enforcement was quickly able to identify it as belonging to 23-year-old Christopher Newsom. Shannon was still missing, but the discovery instilled urgency amongst the community at large to find the missing woman. Now, when Shannon's car was discovered near Chipman Street, authorities immediately began searching it for any clues as to what could have happened to Shannon. So, really disturbing stuff, Daryn, but we want to take a quick break because that was a lot, let's be honest. That was a lot of like really horrific details to sort of
Horrendous.
yes. So, we wanted to just mention you guys Patreon. We'll take a break from the details and tell you we just shipped out Beanie Babies.
Yeah, my
Okay?
personal collection of Beanie Babies have officially shipped, which is exciting.
That's right. Some of you guys that signed up on Patreon a couple of months ago, sent us your information. And by the way, when you're at the Sussy Radish tier, which is our highest level, you get a physical gift every year. So this is what that is for a lot of the people from 2023. I know it's August. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we finally sent out our physical gift and we're really excited. I know a lot of you guys that are Patreon members were commenting on our Patreon post.
I'm
Really
really proud of this
excited.
gift. I think like
Yeah.
it's so cool and like attention to detail. If you've been listening to us for a long time, you were gonna get it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I really like the gift.
Yeah, I think it's cute too. It's very unique to the show, which I really
Yeah.
love. And by the way, we posted a picture of Magic next to a big pile of the boxes that we shipped out. He did
Well,
help me.
because he helps. Because he
He did help
helps.
me. He helped, I used his little paw and he helped, put
Yeah.
the little
He
stamps and
seals things. Yeah,
he
he
sealed
stamps.
things up.
He stamps and
But
seals. He
aside from
seals and
that,
stamps.
he seals and stamps. But aside from that, we had a poll up recently about covering the upcoming Scott Peterson documentary on Peacock. Patreon spoke, Daryn, and what did they say?
We will be covering it. Trust me, we were probably going to cover it anyway because I'm pretty
Yeah, we were.
fascinated by the
Yeah, we
case.
were. Yeah.
But look forward to that because it's coming out pretty soon. So we're going to try and drop that right when the doc airs. So hopefully you guys can catch it as soon as it drops.
That's right. And so comment on Patreon with your thoughts about that once it's out. We would love to read those on the show. And just a reminder, Patreon is just as little as $5 a month, and it really does help our show. We've built such an amazing community. You can get it even
Yes.
cheaper if you sign up annually. That's less than the price of a Starbucks drink these days. So it
Or
really,
Dunkin' Donuts. And I have a feeling that this
well,
Scott Peterson case is going to spark a lot of discussion like Casey
yeah,
Anthony.
I'm sure it
People
will.
just are so set on their feelings
Yeah,
about this, and this could change. So
it's a good point. That's a really good
we'll
point.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So check us out on Patreon if you haven't already. It's patreon.com/shaken and disturbed, or you can click the link in our
In
show
our show
notes. All
notes.
right. Daryn, back
And
to the show here.
just tried to predict what you were saying there.
Yeah, you did. You always are doing that. It's fine.
Well, pivoting back to Shannon's car, which was actually discovered near Chipman Street. So, though most of the car was wiped clean, investigators discovered a discarded bank envelope from the back seat. They were able to collect a single fingerprint belonging to Lemaricus. Let me just say,
Let me just say, sneeze.
that
Yep.
um these people are so fucking sick and twisted that they're putting bleach down her throat and then they
Yeah.
fucking forget a bank envelope in the back seat. I'm
That's
just
pretty
saying, like,
stupid. That's pretty
just it,
stupid.
but like who would even think to put bleach down her throat? Like I've never even
I
heard of that
know.
before. I never even think of to do that, which is disgusting and twisted. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, they're gonna kind of think of that. Well,
Yeah.
obviously, this bank statement is kind of it's huge. It's a break in the case. This led them to Lemaricus's nearby home, where police made a chilling discovery. Shannon's lifeless
Mm,
body was found in a trash can there, beaten, assaulted, and with remnants of bleach in her throat, not normal. Though her injuries were numerous and severe, the medical examiner determined that her ultimate cause of death was suffocation. And within a few days, police were able to track down Eric Boyd's vehicle. By the way, testament to the strength of the human body that you can go through all of that and it's suffocation that kills you, not the
yeah,
fact that you're
right.
just being beaten and raped and put
Of
bleach down your
course.
throat. But
Mm.
anyway, within a few days, police were able to track down Eric Boyd's vehicle. And when they pulled him over, he agreed to lead law enforcement to Lemaricus. Wow, so much for loyalty here with these friends.
Right, right.
Though he tried to hide from police, Lemaricus was taken into custody. He was still wearing Chris's sneakers at the time of
Ugh.
his capture, which is all so fucking twisted.
Yeah.
And by the end of the month, Vanessa, George, and Latalvis were also arrested and detained in Lebanon, Kentucky. Now, initially, Vanessa was treated as a witness in the case. She claimed that she had been present for the attacks, but paralyzed by fear for her own safety.
Hmm.
Could be true. Could be true. I could see a
Yeah.
world under which that would be true. Although, what kind of people are you hanging out with? Guys that are going to be willing to do this? I doubt this was their first time, but
Yeah.
okay. Now, during their investigation, authorities discovered a journal entry written by Vanessa, written the night Channon and Chris were killed. And the entry reads, quote, "Last night was one of a kind. We stayed with a crackhead that is cool as hell. It snowed a little bit, but it's already melted. Let's talk about adventures. I had one hell of an adventure since I've been in the big TN, Tennessee. It's a crazy world these days, but I love the fun adventures and lessons that I've learned. It's going to be a long, interesting year," end quote. Now, keep in mind, that was the night that Channon and Chris were killed, so I'm not confident she was paralyzed by this fear.
Right.
Vanessa was later obviously indicted along with the rest of the group, given this diary entry, and thus began a series of trials and retrials for this group of attackers.
Well, I want to say something about diary entries. What do you think about diary entries? Because, go ahead. I asked you a question. I should
No,
have
I mean,
given you a
I
second
think
to
I think
respond.
they're a slice of the person. I think it's the best slice of a person's mentality. I guess like diary entries are along the ideas of making a social video today, like blogging in
Yeah,
a
that's
way of
true. Yeah.
getting the best in time
Snapshot.
reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, snapshot of what that person was thinking,
Yeah.
whether or
I
not that
mean,
can be forged or not, or you're high off adrenaline, or that's what you actually think. I don't know the answer to that.
my thing is over the years, having done so many of these episodes and producing, for Oxygen, A&E and others, Discovery, blah, blah, blah. I
Right.
just feel like and I'm not saying it is applying to this case necessarily, but anytime I hear about a diary entry where
Yeah.
the person is like writing down details, like it snowed, but it melted, like I just always raise my eyebrows a little bit because it's too perfect of a way to be like, "Hey, look, that it's in their own writing. It's right here. We found this diary entry and it says everything we wanted to say." And again, I'm
Right.
not saying that's necessarily even what's ever happened, but I just think like it just comes, and you just mentioned the selfie. Like that's a whole different thing. If you're recording a video, you can see intent and you
Well,
see the person talking
right, or it
and
doesn't seem as if you're so distraught you can't possibly,
right. Yeah. And I'm not
live
in the
with
other.
yourself here.
Exactly. And I think about, listen, let's just be honest. There's a lot of evidence tampering by police departments over the history of our country, at least. And I'm not saying that's applying here or anywhere else. I'm just simply saying when I see diary entries, I always think, are we 100% sure that's her? Are we 100% that's her handwriting? Did the police have a moment to sort of write this out? Or what does the diary entry look like? Is it a thrown away piece of paper? Did it belong with other diary entries? Like, I don't know. There's just so much around a diary entry. I don't know many people that even still have diaries these days. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
You know what I'm
know.
saying, though?
I don't know like how legal they are in the court of law.
That's the
Like
other
I
thing.
it's
Yeah.
it feels like almost like a dental impression. It's like you could
Right.
easily forge a diary or entry, and
Right.
obviously you'd have to compare handwriting samples and like who knows, but I do think it's I do think it's like important. Like
I
it has
agree.
a
Yeah.
place
It
in
does
it.
have
I
a
don't know if it should
place.
be the
Yes.
definitive.
My thoughts exactly. And I feel like we hear so many definitive, like, oh, the diary entry reads like, look at what we just mentioned. Eventually she's indicted with the rest of the groups. Was it because she wrote that, whatever she was writing about staying with a crackhead? Like, does that mean you're guilty of a crime? I don't know. But
Right. I don't.
anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I just think things like that can be a little sus. And as true crime podcasters, it's our job to sort of think about things like that.
You're sussing.
I'm
I get it.
sussing a little bit. I find it a hair sussy. All right.
Yeah, you're
Anyway, back
sussing.
to the show and the details here. So in April of 2008, Eric was brought to trial. He was the only participant not charged with murder. Eric was found guilty of being an accessory to the fatal carjacking and for failing to report the location of a known fugitive. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison, which he's currently serving in Yazoo County, Mississippi. Yazoo County, that's a new county I've never heard of.
Yeah,
Um,
that's never heard of that at all.
Never heard of that one. Now, Vanessa was indicted on 12 counts of felony murder related to rape, robbery, kidnapping, and theft, one count of premeditated murder of Channon only, one count of
Mm,
especially aggravated robbery of Chris only, and four counts of especially aggravated kidnapping, 20 counts of aggravated rape. Let me catch my breath, and two counts of theft. So she's got a lot going on. Now,
Jesus.
Vanessa was originally sentenced to 35 years in prison and was denied parole back in 2020. George was indicted on 16 counts of felony murder related to rape, robbery, and kidnapping committing against Channon and Chris, two
Yeah.
counts of premeditated murder, two counts of especially aggravated robbery, four counts of especially aggravated kidnapping, 20 counts of aggravated rape, and two
Wow.
counts of theft. So he's got a lot.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Latalvis faced the same 46 charges as George, plus an additional charge for assaulting a correctional officer while incarcerated pending trial. So this guy's just
A
racking up all
winner.
kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, a winner.
So in October of 2008, the house on Chipman Street was torn down. A memorial marker for the couple was placed in the couple's memory. In August of 2009, Latalvis was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The same month, George was also found guilty of all charges and was granted the same sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. And in
Yep.
2013, George was granted a retrial where he was found guilty on all 38 charges once again and was resentenced to life in prison, but this time with a possibility of parole after 51 years.
So by that
So,
time, at least he would be a much older man, 50 years
exactly.
in jail. I would think at least would change somebody, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I'm reading this book right now, actually called Troubled by Rob Henderson, which is a diary, sort of a memoir about his troubled upbringing, foster
Mm,
families, just in and out. He eventually
right.
went to Yale. It's a little bit of a JD Vance type of situation, a little hillbill elegy. He went to school with JD Vance.
Oh,
I'm
really?
not politically. I'm just saying in terms of like the type of story of sort of
Yeah.
like overcoming these obstacles in his life. But he was saying how basically, especially where he grew up, basically the time where most boys, like the reason the military is sometimes because he ends up going into like the military and fighting,
Yeah.
but he talks about how basically from like young older teens to basically early 20s, that's the period, especially for troubled young men where they
Yeah.
don't really have a parental figure, is when they get into trouble and they usually go to
Yeah.
prison and they get into drugs or do whatever. And so the reason the military is good is not only to teach you discipline, but it keeps you so distracted from getting into trouble
Yeah, for
for
sure.
those ages.
100%. Yeah.
And it's just interesting, like I'm curious about these guys' backgrounds to sort of how did
Yeah,
they get here in this type of way, because these are
for
serious
sure.
counts for people who are pretty young.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
obviously it's premeditated, so which is even crazier, just how they kind of all came together.
Right.
Well,
Totally.
in 2016, Georgia's retrial concluded with a verdict of 2 life sentences and 25 years. In
Right.
October of 2009, ringleader Lemaricus was found guilty of 2 counts of premeditated murder and was sentenced to death. He was
Wow.
transferred to Riverbend Maximum Security Prison in Nashville, Tennessee, where he's still waiting through the appeals process. It does take a long time to kill
Yeah.
someone, thank God. Now, since the incident, the small Knoxville community has been forever changed. The incident reminded residents of the normally safe town to always stay aware of their surroundings. And after the conclusion of the trials, Channon and Chris's families lobbied for new legislature to be put into place. The Channon Christian Act, which was passed in 2014, 10 years ago, restricts attorneys and defendants from raising questions about a deceased victim's past to throw their morals or character into question.
Well,
So
that's
if something
good.
so if something was up with Channon and Chris, perhaps they had a rocky marriage, rocky relationship, or she hit him or whatever, it shouldn't necessarily have anything to do with the
No.
current murder situation. It might,
No.
but it just, yeah. Now, Shannon's character was called into question by the defense team on several occasions during trial, which seemed wrong, as she was no longer present to speak for herself. She couldn't advocate for her reputation there.
Yeah,
And the
what does her
families have also,
character have to do with the fact that they were carjacked and murdered? Give me a break
yeah,
here.
I mean, doesn't make the perps, those are kind of two separate
No.
situations. Even if she wasn't a good person, it has nothing to do with the fact that she was
Stupid.
caught here, unless for some reason she was involved, which clearly she wasn't. The
Right.
families have also established foundations in the Chris and Shannon's names. The Channon Christian Foundation and the Channon Christian Golf Tournament provide a scholarship to a Farragut High School senior to attend the University of Tennessee, which is
That's
really sweet.
amazing.
Similarly, the Newsom family started a foundation in Chris's name, which provides a scholarship to a local graduating baseball player and holds an
Wow.
annual baseball tournament at the community park.
Love that.
So, a slight flower bloom in kind of a series of just like dark clouds and muddy waters, but tragedy all around that hopefully can bring a community together. This didn't happen long ago, and just like shitty situation, to say the least.
Yeah. And I will mention too, I was looking up some details about this case before we recorded. There's a very interesting, I think it's about like 16-minute YouTube video from Knoxville News. And it's sort of this documentary. It's called The Murders of Shannon Christian and Chris Newsom.
Yeah,
Um, and it really, you get to hear from like the parents and you get to know more about them. And I always think that's an interesting thing to add here because it does humanize these victims, and give you a sort of better sense of who they were. And frankly, gives a little more, what's the word? Like humanizes them, they're not
color.
just a
Yeah,
story
right.
here on the show. They are human beings that had a life. And, specifically, I love the last details here that Megan and did such a great job of putting together about Chris being a baseball player because, in that documentary, you can see pictures of him playing baseball
Yeah.
and it's a tragic ending, but at least, like you said, Darren, there's a flower blooming with, these kind of scholarships and stuff.
And let
So,
me also just say, this case also seems kind of rare because a lot of these things that happen to
hmm,
victims usually happen to someone they know. It doesn't really happen to strangers too often. Like the
right.
perpetrators usually know their victims typically. So this also is
Yeah.
kind of a rare case because one of the tragic things is sort of scaring a town into believing that they need to watch
Yeah.
around the
Yeah. That's
bend
true.
every single second, which is also like pretty insidious and kind of happens slowly over time. And like you sort of hate to see people lose their hope and sort of their sense of like
Yeah.
obliviousness
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
There's something about ignorance being bliss, but yeah, a town is lost when something like this happens, even though the likelihood of happening it again in a small town is probably very, very uncommon. But still,
Yeah.
there's a lot of lives still
It's
lost
true.
when something like this happens. So
It's true. Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys thought about this week's episode. Hit us up at J Thrasher and Carpe Darren. You can hit us up on our Facebook page. And of course, if
yes.
you're on Patreon, message us there, put it in the comments, and we'll be sure to read those on future episodes.
Yeah, and speaking of
Darren,
the
let's,
Facebook page, I
yeah, go
want
ahead.
to actually get to this shout out, which I loved. If you don't mind if I take it first, we actually want to give a special shout out to one of the newest radishes in our garden. She's spicy. We got Sierra who posted in our Facebook group. Hi, all. Just found this podcast. So excited to get caught up. And many of you, of course, welcomed her with open arms and said
Yes.
super sweet things about us. So thank you for that. We hope you stick around, Sierra, and definitely
Yeah.
feel free to comment because we'd love to hear from you.
Welcome to the garden. It's also like welcome to the salad. Are we a salad or are we just
Well,
a
I am
garden?
from Jersey. I'm from a garden state, so it does make
Oh, okay. That
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
but
nice.
I feel like it's like a radish only salad.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know how
just
like
radishes.
delicious.
Yes.
Right, it's just radishes. Like you can't really be anything else in the fucking garden. So like
Yeah.
not sure we're a salad.
Yeah,
Just saying.
maybe that's right. Maybe that's right. I want to read what a listener named Coco, which Coco, I've seen you a lot in our Facebook group. She said something that she said, I should say. Coco says, quote, "Welcome to the fam, young radish. Be prepared
Yep.
for laughs, WTF moments, ships, cats,
Mm,
and so many other
mm.
things that are too long to list. Most of all, be ready for addiction of this show. Any questions, just ask. You'll get an answer from any of us."
Oh, that's so
Coco, I
nice,
love
Coco.
you.
I know. I love all of them. I love all our dear, sweet, spicy radishes. I love it all.
And I want to make it clear, Coco is not that is not a fake account that I created. That is an actual human being. So just to be
Yes,
clear.
true, true.
Thank
It's
you guys.
magic.
And that's right. Yeah, it's Magic's like personal account. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Yes.
Darren, you shared your insect ambush on last week's NMR. You gave us an
And this
update
week's.
on this week's NMR.
Yeah.
And I want to mention that many of our listeners were sending well wishes, including Patreon radish Lauren, who said, quote, Darren, dot, 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 pants, long sleeves, and socks on your next walk.
Had socks.
Okay.
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 The sleeves were fine. Pants would be great, except it's August in LA and it's like very hot. But like,
Yeah.
you're right. I should do it.
Lauren is right.
Lauren is right. Our radishes are never wrong.
Listen to
I
Mommy
I
Lauren.
stand
She's trying to
corrected.
make sure you're okay. All right.
That's right. Maybe she's a daddy. We don't know.
That's true. Maybe she's Daddy Lauren. Well, listen
Yeah,
to your parent, Daryn, in this regard.
I will.
Yeah, if you want to hear an update on Daryn's leg and my reaction, by the way, to it,
Yes.
she sent me a picture during the recording. You guys should go back and listen to it. It's available right now on our public feed. It's a lot. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to take your vitamins.
Yes, and please check your pits, especially if you have a penis, John. And
Uh,
stop eating, John, a fucking whole pack of raw weenies. You love to
oh
do
my
that,
God.
especially on the show, and it's annoying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sierra's like, what's happening? All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Bye.